Hello, welcome. It's really good to have you with me. I'm sorry I can't see you and that we're not sitting in a nice coffee shop somewhere all together having a lovely drink and chat. But this is the space that I'm meeting with you in today, and it's really great, as I said, to have you here. I'm sitting in my home on the Sunshine Coast in Queensland, Australia. I wonder where you are, and I hope you're comfy and ready to spend a little time with me, and that the whole COVID impact, which has been global, hasn't it, as well as personal. I hope it has not hurt you or anyone you love, and that you're okay and you're going to be okay in every way. Okay, so it's a big story I have to tell you, and I have 40 minutes, and I wonder whether I can just go straight into it, even though we don't know each other, and I'll tell you a little bit about me. On the first slide, I'll just say something about me, even though I say more during the whole presentation, just to give you your bearings with me. So my name is Dyann Ross. I'm a Doctor of Philosophy in the area of, gosh, no, I shouldn't have gone there, in the area of social work education and what makes for empowering students who become incredible, in fact, revolutionary social workers when they graduate and work with people. So this is, believe it or not, quite remarkable to be sitting here with this topic called Love in Action is the Revolution, Walking the Same Path as BTS, because I would not have, even 2 years ago, described my life work as Love in Action is the Revolution. And I didn't know BTS then, and I could never have imagined being here at this time. So there's a few remarkable things that bring me here. But the most remarkable, I think, before we go beyond the first slide, is that this is a celebration of revolutionaries. And Revolutionaries is an incredibly exciting, brand new, even though it's a year old, still brand new, still growing, still shaping itself, digital book publishing company. It's that and more. And I'm sure by the time you've dipped in and out of all the presentations and discussions for the REVOLT FESTA 2021, you will have a really good sense of just the incredible richness and exciting nature of Revolutionaries. Okay, so, just also as a first point, my background is social work, as you may have guessed, even at this time, though I'm an academic and teaching social work. And so for many decades, I've been a social worker. And when we come to talking about how I'm walking the same path as BTS, I guess the big take-home message, which I'll say up front, is, because otherwise, why is a social worker in Australia, feeling like they're walking on the same path as BTS? I think the path of love is the answer to everything that is hurting people and troubling people, and also hurting the planet and the animals and other beings on the planet at this time. The lack of love is the problem. So anybody in their creative work and in their day-to-day lives who is choosing love, especially for themselves, which was a big part of what I have tried to enable as a social worker, but also reaching out and loving others in gentle, kind, and relevant ways. It's not surprising, that I'm standing here at this point in time with this amazing book company, and which was really birthed by the creative effort of Willia Eaglehawk and her connection with BTS and her first book. So I'll say a little bit more about how Willia Eaglehawk and I and BTS are all kind of on the same path. And I actually believe the very fact that you're watching means that you're on the same path as well. And I'll come back to what that path is in a little moment. If I could just take the liberty of pausing for a moment to formally acknowledge the Gubbi Gubbi Cabby Cabby people who are the custodial caretakers and stewards of this area on the Sunshine Coast where I live and work. As a citizen in Australia, which is a white settler society, I also acknowledge that it always was and always will be Aboriginal land. I stand with First Nation peoples and all minority racial societies who continue to peacefully struggle for their rights and sovereignty. I actively work to divest myself of my white privilege and pay it forward with love. So this is a brief overview of where I'm going to ask you to join me on this little journey today. This discussion begins by telling you a bit more about me and how I came to be a practitioner of revolutionary love, and how even I have the confidence right here, right now, to speak about myself in that way. It seems to be a grand claim, doesn't it, to be a practitioner of revolutionary love. I add to this by telling you about my book, The Revolutionary Social Worker, and how I came to be involved with Revolutionaries, the avant-garde book publishing company. I explain how this occurred due to a loving revolutionary partnership with my daughter, Willie Horcross. And I do acknowledge her as being the love of my life. This brings me then to how I am inspired by BTS to show how music is a prime example of love in action as the revolution, especially the music of BTS, who consciously cultivate love and self-love and love for others in their music, coming from an authentic exploration of their own selves and their own partnership as a group of people who make music for others. So this is just a preface statement to link us to this idea of a path with a heart. So does this path have a heart? This is a question I asked myself back in my 20s, and it really helped me get my bearings for the rest of my life. And at the time I was reading Carlos Castaneda, 1968, you can see how way back that was. And this is a quote from his book. In my own life, I could say, I have traversed long, long paths, but I am not anywhere. Does this path have a heart? If it does, the path is good. If it doesn't, it is of no use. Both paths lead nowhere, but one has a heart, the other doesn't. One makes for a joyful journey. As long as you follow it, you are one with it. The other will make you curse your life. One makes you strong, the other weakens you. Before you embark on any path, ask yourself this question: does this path have a heart? If the answer is no, you will know it, and then you must choose another path. And I use the word, I segue from the word heart in Carlos Castaneda's quote here to make it one and the same as the concept of love, and one and the same as anyone who's walking the path with a heart. And this makes you a revolutionary at this time. So important that you stay on this path with us. So just some introductory comments about my early life and career, and what you'll see, it's no accident from where I came from as a little person in the world to being a social worker all my life, to being here, right now, with this book publishing company, and absolutely limerent for BTS, and so much creativity is coming from that. So I grew up in the 1950s and 1960s in Tasmania, here in Australia, when children should be seen and not heard. We were constantly sent outside to play. We're never involved in anything important that was happening. Girls were to get married and have children. There was no expectation for anything else. And in fact, once you got married, even if you had a job, you had to give up your job. And there was certainly no encouragement to have a career. Domestic violence and poverty in the small mining town where I lived in Tasmania was rife. It wasn't only in our home, but it was in a lot of homes, so it seemed normal, but it certainly didn't feel right. It was terrifying and cast a dark cloud over my whole family. We lived with constant fear of violence breaking out, even when it wasn't happening. Love was obviously hard to find in that situation, but I found it as a little person in nature, with pets in our household, and with injured animals that would come to our house to be looked after, and helping my little brothers and sisters, because I'm in fact one of the eldest of 8 children. So I was often caring for little brothers and sisters. This taught me about love from a very early age. It also taught me about being of service in the world, being of value in the world by reaching out and giving to others. I became a social worker to make a difference so little children could grow up feeling safe, loved and encouraged to follow their dreams. And I didn't even know what social work was as a child, and it was really quite remarkable when in my mid-teens, following my boyfriend at the time, I went off to uni and fell upon accidentally the social work degree program, and I couldn't believe the finding of a language I didn't have for explaining my life experiences up until then, but also my life purpose. And it was all within the whole social work idea of being of service to others, being loving, gentle and kind to people, and also helping stand with them to stand up for injustice that may be happening in their lives. So I have found my calling at a fairly early age, let's say, no accident, given how I was as a child, and being really alert to what was happening in my family and wanting to make that better. As a social worker over the decades of my career, I've mainly worked with individuals who've experienced mental illness and the stigma, the devaluing of them that arises from that experience, so often for people that can be very harmful. One of my current interests in my professional space is writing in the space around the issue of coercion and violence in mental health facilities. An example would be seclusion and restraint, when people who become very distressed in a mental health facility are literally locked in a space and left alone. And to me, this is a crime against humanity, and some of my writing and advocacy at this time is in that space. So not so much direct work with clients at this time, but looking at the whole system of state care when someone is experiencing unsafety because of their mental health concerns. So, you know, my career continues in that more traditional social work path, but it's starting to take a very different shape now with my current coming alongside Revolutionaries digital book publishing company and all that's about. And the main shift for me, I guess, is that and it's a bit like what Aurora was saying in the preceding presentation. I'm moving in some ways from a focus of direct work with individual people and their life stories, to writing stories and helping others write stories, including my own story, and hoping this is of value to others. Okay, so that's a little bit about me. Coming on to the next part, a bit more about me, I guess, and bringing it closer to where we're wanting to launch off from. My loves are a sustaining life force, as I believe there would be for all of you, whatever your loves are. And I do so hope you feel loved at this time. And my loves are also my life purpose, so I have a really strong alignment between what I love to do, the people I love, and what I am doing. I'm very privileged in that regard. I have come to know love, which I didn't know as a little child. I've come to know it through loving others and receiving love in return. Love has brought me here to this time with you. My being a mother to Walia is the singular most amazing experience of my life. And every day, because we live in the same house, we sustain and support each other with love in very practical, caring ways. So if you're a mother, and even if you're not, and if you're a father, or you care and love for somebody, an animal or nature, then you will know something of what it's like to know true love. I'm a social work academic, as I was saying, and what's so interesting about that, other than it being my passion, you know, to enable the next generation of social workers and to encourage them to be revolutionaries, in fact, not just, you know, pen pushers or doing the will of the state, even if it doesn't serve the person before them, actually revolutionising the systems of care and education and prisons that may not be serving people. So as part of being an academic, what happens is you do a lot of writing. Obviously, you do teaching and you do community service and administration within the university, but a large part of what we're meant to do and do is writing. What's really bizarre, I think, and no longer ethically enough for us, is to write. We write usually for academic journals, which are have a very narrow group of people who read them, usually other academics. And, you know, whether that adds value to the world is very debatable. And it can become a whole thing about getting as many publications in the right journals as you can, you know, to get the promotion or get recognised as an academic. And this in some ways felt to me like just all hard work, didn't have much heart and soul to it, although I would try to put soul and heart into my writing, but very onerous, long drawn out process. So about parallel when Leah was looking to write her first book, Idle Limerence, she and I had just finished writing and editing a book called Eco-Activism, and I'll come back to this in a moment, but just so you can see, this is the book that Leah and I, in 2019, for the very first time, had a merging of our professional careers in the editing of that book. And what happened straight after that, and about the same time as I was saying that she was writing Idle Limerence, I decided, with the influence of Walea and the ideas she was working with, I thought, gosh, I need to write a book that puts it out there a bit more to people, everyday people, what's important, but also to really give a call to social workers that we need to be in this revolution. And the problem with the book that we worked on together is that the pricing of it is just so ridiculous that it's very hard for people to afford. It's also written in a very academic way. So I really like what Walea was doing, wanting to write a book for everybody that could speak to them and support them on their life journey. So it's maybe now not accidental and surprising, although it's surprising to me, that I'm Deputy Editor-in-Chief of Revolutionaries and have the incredible privilege of supporting other people in their writing. And the most recent, in fact, was supporting what I think is going to be one of the most significant books of our time. Let me just get that for you. Sorry, I should have that handy. This incredible book by Christy Alger, 5 Essays for Freedom. If you haven't heard about it, please look it up on the Revolutionaries website. I'm vegan, but it's a book for anyone who cares about animals and what's happening on the planet and wants to do something about it. So that's an example of the incredible honour I'm experiencing at this time through Revolutionaries of supporting others to write, to come to their voice and to make an influence out in the world. In fact, my writing is now sitting smack in the pocket of this idea of love and any action that is about love being about the revolution at this time. So what's happened, as I'll say and explain a bit more in a moment, my path and Walea's has come together in a really exciting way. And I really do see myself, even though I'm a lecturer and a teacher at university, I see myself as a student of being revolutionary love in my daily life. I consciously am alert to how I am around people and the beings in my life and seek to be loving and gentle and kind at all times and to look after myself as well. And I do believe this is what's brought me to be walking on the same path as BTS. I think we are co-revolutionaries, in fact, just coming from a different point of creativity, different biographies, but at this same point on this path at this time. I kept choosing the path with a heart at every turn, even though for many years I did not know love for myself. Coming forward to the next slide, if that would just go over. I'm not sure why that's not going over. Let's just, I think that's, let me just double check that that hasn't jumped too far there. Yeah, that's correct. This slide is called The Crossover in My Work When Revolutionaries was created. So I've said some of this, so I won't spend too much time. I'll just give another quick summary of it. I co-edited an academic book with Walea in 2019, which was about activism for social change. And in every way, this Revolutionaries book company is about activism for social change. And at the time, what I thought, this is what social workers needed to know about. They needed to know about how to stand up for the environment and animals as well as people. And I just wasn't seeing it because social work has primarily been concerned with helping people, which is obviously honourable and important. And often this helping people, though, happened in government-funded services such as child protection agencies, juvenile justice, women's health centres, prisons, and so on. And increasingly, as I was mentioning before about the issue of coercion and violence, many of these systems actually add to the challenges and problems in people's lives because of the toxicity of the workplaces and how often clients are treated not respectfully. So social work has been absent. Given all of that, and there's so much to be done in mainstream social work, I was actually concerned that social work has been absent on matters of animal rights and environmental sustainability and stewardship. And I wanted to change this, and that's what that book was about. In doing this book project, Walea joined, as I mentioned a moment ago, as a co-editor. And here I discovered a kindred spirit right in the same house where I live, related to me as well, and a very creative and adept editor. And I don't know why it took me so long to recognise that we were on the same path, almost exactly in step, just writing different books, honestly. Within the next months, she had created Revolutionaries, and in the summit tomorrow, I think Walea will talk about how there were no book publishing companies that would recognise the nature of her work, which was so unusual because it was cross-genre. And a new pathway opened for me with Walea. unbelievable, remarkable. I couldn't have created a better story for myself. So out of the alignment of my work and Walea's work, the theme central in my life work, due to this loving revolutionary partnership with Walea, are these themes. If you could just start with the second dot point. What I really have come to believe, and am really still trying to explore, and am about to write a book about this, if I can understand it enough, is nature is the best example of revolutionary love. And if we really grab hold of what that means and listen to nature, seek to be at one with her and to support her, then so many of the issues facing the planet at this time would resolve over time. Nature is loving because she supports all life. Yeah? Music is the essence of the life force. This is a totally exciting idea for me, which I came to by trying to think about, why is BTS so relevant and engaging and significant to me at this time? And it brought me back to some thoughts I had early in my career when I was trying to understand life, the universe and everything, that music is the essence of life force. Its vibration is a language for all beings. And I'll come back to this again in a moment. Drawing the threads together for how we get to BTS in our work at this time. Interrelatedly, I believe love is the highest expression of life force that sustains life and heals and inspires. And love means many things to many people, and I think there's room for all of those understandings. In my writing, I talk about it as political action to change the world, which is really still in the pocket of revolutionaries. What's interesting in Walea's work is she brings it much closer to home as to what love means to us and how we express it. So this next point talks about that a little, not as eloquently as Walea does, but here we are, just to catch the point here. Love as limerence is such an interesting idea to me. Love as limerence toward BTS and their music, for example, refers to relational fantasy, dreaming, and it is inspirational state that feeds back into the psychic realm and sustains the listener and encourages the music makers. Something happens when I'm listening to BTS's music and other favourite music of my own that transports me somewhere where we meet as equals and just absolutely enjoy that moment of dreaming. It's a dreaming state, isn't it? Incredibly interesting. And it fortifies us, feeds back into the music, because there's no doubt about it. Groups like BTS are sustained by ARMY. And I am ARMY. I'm a member of ARMY. And in that mutual but very different kind of spaces that we meet in and relationship keeps going round like a merry-go-round, a happy merry-go-round. Okay. So I find this a really hard statement to make because it's totally scary. I'm a love revolutionary, and let me tell you a little bit about how I understand that. Because what is that? A revolutionary, and this is what I talk about in my book, which I'll talk further about more directly in a second. A revolutionary is a nonviolent, loving, and justice-seeking citizen of the world. Any action of love, any nonviolent action, and any action towards justice makes you a revolutionary. As well, animals and nature are of equal intrinsic value to humans. I absolutely believe that. We are all equal as beings who belong and matter. And they also act in the world. It's not only us who are revolutionaries and can act and influence the world, but animals and nature more broadly, non-sentient beings, rivers, mountains, forests, for example, contribute to the good and sustaining of life, and therefore are also revolutionaries. So next time you're walking in the forest, down the beach, or looking at a tree nearby, hopefully you've got a tree nearby. Yeah, there you go. It's contributing to your life, isn't it? These ideas turn the popular idea of revolution as violent uprisings on its head. This is not what we're talking about with this idea of revolutionary. And calls instead for everyday little acts of love and fairness, wherever we are and whatever we're doing. Part of how I came to this idea was that social workers go through a whole 4-year education and feel really inadequate when they're standing in front of a client and feel like their education has not equipped them to make a really big difference other than in the moment listening to a person, which I really believe is the most important thing. And so, when I'm saying that wherever you are and whatever you're doing, and I say this to social workers, you are able in that moment to show gentle, loving kindness, to recognize the person or the being before you. And that matters. That matters. And it all adds up because millions of people every day are doing the same thing. And that's where the revolution comes in. As I just say now, sometimes we can align with others in larger mass movements like Black Lives Matter movement, which has been around for many decades. It isn't finished and will still need our support. Animal rights and climate change as some of the mass movements for change, social change at this time. And they are all based on nonviolent activism. Other times we walk the path seemingly alone, but we're actually not alone when we're acting with love. It is the life force. Yeah, it is the life force. And you're at least with nature when you're doing that, even if there isn't a human being right beside you as you're walking that path. Okay, so here we come to one of the I don't know which number book it was that became it came in the production line of Revolutionaries last year, 2020. It's an inaugural year. But this book, as you can see, The Revolutionary Social Worker, has been was the second book according to Aaliyah after Idle Limerence, and very influenced by obviously everything that was going on with Aaliyah in creating her book. And I actually took it originally to an international publisher. I think Revolutionaries wasn't quite, it was just before it was created, anchored in the world, in Aaliyah's thinking. I actually took the proposal for this book off to another major book company that had published our previous one. And I wanted it to be a little bit different because I tell some of my story in it. I thought I can't be asking people to be revolutionary if I don't place myself in the story and ask the same thing of myself. And what was so interesting to me is when the book proposal, when the review of it came back from the publisher, there were so many ums and ahs and, oh, we're not sure about that. That's a bit unusual. And I thought, actually, I'm not going to be able to write the book I want to write with them. And what was so important about this book is that all the publications I had done in academia didn't really have me in the book, and I wanted to be in it and with the people I was writing for. And I thought, I can't publish with that company. And it was kind of, oh, hello, right before me, right in my own space and my own relationship with Aaliyah. Here's a brand new book company and absolutely fitted smack in the pocket of what Revolutionaries is all about. And as you see, took the inspiration of Revolutionary and placed it in front of social worker, which is a bit of a scary thing because it's an unusual word in social work. Sometimes social workers talk about them, sometimes social workers talk about them as radical or, critical social workers. No one's ever talked about revolutionary social worker. So it's a bit of an out there book, and it's inviting people to join us on the path with heart. That's basically what it's about. It's a model of practice for social workers. And what was so interesting is how this cross-influenced, I know, Aaliyah, and in our discussions about the whole ethic of the Revolutionaries Book Company, which we'll talk some more about tomorrow in the summit. But for now, what I distilled in this book, which may be one way to get hold of what the book's about, are 3 values or 3 guiding lights for walking the path with the heart. And these are love, non-violence, and ecological justice. And what the book says is these 3 points here with the little arrows beside them. Lovelessness, which I think is a great issue on our society that's not in our world, that's not recognised. Lovelessness is changed by love. Violence is changed by non-violence. Ecological justice, which includes social, that is human justice, animals justice and environmental justice, is changed by ecological justice. And these ideas are distilled from more than 40 years of practice and writing and learning from others, writing and work, and sit right in the middle of all the great social and environmental movements of our time. These are key principles of revolutionary practice, or what we call in social work anti-oppressive practice. So I distilled down the literature, I distilled down the learning from all the activists and all the people who have stood up for love and justice into these key concepts of love, non-violence, and ecological justice. This gives you a sense of the nuanced nature of how I understand love, because I hold it all together under the idea of the love ethic. And the love ethic is from Bell Hooks, who's an incredible Afro-American activist. If you haven't seen her work, I really encourage you to find it. Very readable. Yeah, that's right. And what Leah's mentioned just before I pass off this slide, this little pocketbook of the Revolutionary Social Worker has a little related book. Ta-da! Let me get it on the screen properly. The Revolutionary Social Worker, the Love Ethic Companion. And of course, I was being very purposeful when I wrote that, because it was trying to think about what would be really useful to the students I teach, because that's where I'm using the book at the moment. And that's full of theories, ethical theories that underpin these ideas that I've just been telling you about. So, you may find them useful, or you may know someone who could use those ideas if they're doing some teaching work or community building work or activism work, helping people on their way with some ideas about how to do it. Okay, so here I am writing and trying to be the revolutionary social worker, and all of that's pretty scary, putting myself out there, putting my whole self in this story. After years and decades of listening to people's stories and being there for them, which usually means keeping yourself back out of the story a bit so you can be there for other people. Okay, just a little moment while that slide turns over. Over. Right, you're not going. Just a second, just trying, there it goes. So just, it's really hard, excuse me, in a short period of time to say how I practice revolutionary love. You may be getting a bit of a vibe for how I try and line up my values and actions as part of what that's about. That's absolutely true. So this slide is just giving you a little sense of how I talk about it in the book. Might give you a clue for how you might already be doing it, just putting some language to it. So how I practice revolutionary love, and everybody can do it. Most of us are doing it most of the time. And as Leah would say in her book, self-love is where it starts, but it just can't stop with self-love. We need to be reaching out to others as well. Practicing revolutionary love can challenge the status quo. So the status quo is the current existing, continuing reality that we know on the planet, in our workplace, in our home situation. The things that are not okay in that situation, that are hurting people or treating people unfairly. And the whole point of practicing revolutionary love is to contribute for change for the better. So one of the things as a teeny little person I knew was that I couldn't stop the violence that was happening by the adults towards each other and us, but I could help protect and care for the little kids around me, little kids, my brothers and sisters who were frightened. I could create safe spaces and help keep them safe. So that was all I could do in that situation, but it mattered. Yeah? So whatever situation you're in, what you can contribute, yeah. So don't add to the violence, don't add to the lovelessness. Try to pivot and change wherever you can, the smallest change. The act of love can look like a step towards someone in showing empathy and understanding, or a willingness to listen when they're really distressed or really angry. We know how to do this. So in the book, I talk about it as three main movements or actions that we need to know how to do in any situation we are in. Challenging with love, resisting with love, and changing with love. And in the book, I develop some quite sophisticated case studies and tell stories that show how the people in the stories use these skills. So challenging with love could be when someone's saying they hate themselves, when they're talking to you, for example, and you say, oh, look, I wonder if we could have a listen to what you just said there and a look at what you just said there and think about that a bit more. That's challenging with love. Yeah, very little action, but yeah, don't let that go by when someone says they hate themselves, and definitely don't agree with them. Yeah, resisting with love would be when you're in a violent situation or a very toxic or distressing situation, not adding to it, recognizing what's happening and standing steady in non-violent, caring, kind actions. And if you're in a situation with a lot of gossiping that's really harmful happening, do not add to the gossip. Either walk away or keep your mouth shut. Do not add to the gossip that is hurting someone, as one example. Changing with love starts with us, of course, but in the big issues of society, when there's harm happening, it's often a changing where you're trying to put pressure with other people as a group of activists up towards a high power group like a mining company or government or the organisation where you work, and trying to influence them to change. because the whole goal of revolutionary practice is to help people live honourable, loving, safe, worthwhile lives, and for the people who are stopping that from happening to be accountable for any harm they're causing. And this, just think Gandhi, think the work of Gandhi and all the great leaders of social movements. The powerful do not give up their privilege and power lightly. They have to be respectfully, but quite strongly encouraged to do so. This is what the ultimate goal of revolutionary love is: peace and justice and love for everybody, including nature. And just very briefly now, quickly now, because I'm dilly-dallying, an example from the non-human world would be one that was cited in Alga's book that I mentioned to you, 5 Essays for Freedom. She provides an example of animals cooperating to challenge humans who have caused harm to them. She describes a coordinated effort by a pod of orcas, and she writes, the orcas communicated with each other. They spoke to one another with vocalizations to deliberately ram boats in the Strait of Gibraltar. That's a hard word to say when I'm talking fast. I'll slow down. This resulted in a change with how humans interacted with the whales, showing that theirs, that is the whales' actions, are in fact direct actions for other animal liberation. Very interesting. We mustn't think that we're the only ones who are revolutionary beings, because it leaves us too alone in the world at times, I think. Nature is the best example of revolutionary love. We've talked about this earlier on, and I won't read this whole quote, it's a little bit kind of full on, but I do believe nature is the source of life. Our planet is a sacred source of life, a living organism with us in it, that is the common home for all of us, all living beings, all non-sentient beings. Humans are as much nature as trees and animals, and we're not separate, we are all one. Okay, let's just keep moving. And this is where I need to get to. I'm sorry, it's just taken, it seems I've been a long journey to get here. Hope you're okay with what's happening so far. Music is the essence of life force. And this is also a bit of a complicated note here from Mursam and Ventura. Let me just catch a couple of points in it. All life exists within a sea of vibration, and rhythm is fundamental to all life. And coming down to the last comment in this quote, and the notion that music can touch the core of our being is as old as human consciousness. Okay, coming forward. A meeting of paths, the path with heart is musical. I do believe this is the common connecting thread to all of us, music in many forms. And of course, we're interested in BTS at this time. A meeting of paths, the path with heart is musical. I've always loved listening to music. I'm sure you do. For me, my being a mother to Aliyah, I've just ended up following in her slipstream of the music she loves. And with BTS, there was the coming together of paths that has shifted my life work on its axis. BTS are the preeminent example of music as love. The members and everyone who supports and works with them are party to this love in action. When you see them interacting together, interacting with fans, with their staff, it is just an incredible example of love in action. ARMY, the fans of BTS, have continually and often in very eloquent and inspiring ways expressed how BTS's music is love in action. BTS confirmed what I sensed to be true and authentic about life without understanding their lyrics. I could feel their meaning through the musicality, the choreography, the photography, the costumes, the scene setting and more in their performance work, but also in the discussions and other interactions they have with ARMY. BTS music, I believe, taps into the collective unconscious. If you want to know more about the collective unconscious, read Willia's Idle Limerence. A lifetime of being a social worker has been incredible. I've had an incredible life meeting amazing people. However, witnessing tragedy, suffering, trauma, violence, and struggles for justice can itself be life-sapping. I find BTS's music and performances bring me joy and happiness without me having to do anything. It's just easy. All I can say is thank you, Willia, for your theory of idle limerence, which in part explains how it is a safe love, because it asks nothing more than enjoyment in the moment. It is both a salve for my heart and an inspiration because of the universal feelings of love and healing in their work. As Willia explains, BTS know how to draw upon the collective unconscious. These are the universal themes of what matters to people and what is happening to people, and give it a language we can relate to. I don't feel so alone when I listen to their music. They create uplifting experiences of at one-ment, that is, togetherness with anyone who cares to listen. This is an influence far beyond what I could have imagined to do as one person, and I think they're very amazing human beings. Social work and love in relationships. As a child, I wanted to make a difference in the world. I had no language for it. My education gave me the language up to a point. Social work is dedicated to enabling human well-being and social justice. For decades, this was my focus, but only recently have I found the missing ingredients and given them a name: love and music, thanks to BTS. And music is one of the most accessible and safest forms of love. When I reflect on my career, it has always been what has mattered: love and music, and what is nearly always missing for the people, places, and animals that I have worked with and met. So from music to the world stage, so this is where I just became really aware of BTS as more than a pop group. From music to the world stage. In 2018, the United Nations General Assembly launched the following initiative, which was the Generation Unlimited initiative. I won't read all of that detail about what that initiative was about. What was important and spectacular, really, I believe, for such a global organisation to recognise and know about BTS and to see who they really are and what their messages were. They invited BTS to speak, and RM said, and people will know this, if you're an army, we have learned to love ourselves, so now I urge you to speak yourself. And I think that is the power of why they're revolutionaries. They're not asking anything of you for what they are asking and doing themselves. And of course, this well-known theme of all their work, love yourself, speak yourself. BTS consciously cultivate music as a bridge to link with people, to pass messages that are truly revolutionary. The I Am Army book, published by Revolutionaries imprint Bulletproof, is an important collection of army stories about how their lives have been enriched and sometimes saved by BTS's music. These are not some fanciful musings by army or an example of a pathological obsession by fans. Rather, it is people responding to the safe love being offered by BTS. Thanks again to Aaliyah for this understanding of limerence as a constructive force in the world. The 4 words, love yourself, speak yourself, expressed in various ways by BTS, including a world tour in 2018-2019, say more eloquently than any social work textbook I've read or asked students to read, that the heart of the path for revolutionary love is being realised. So it's a wide path. There's room for many people. And just to say, as part of almost my end of my speech here, it feels like a speech, the significance of RM's speech at the United Nations. And as you know, this is another little fragment of what he said. Tell me your story. I want to hear your voice, and I want to hear your conviction. No matter who you are, where you're from, your skin colour, your gender identity, speak yourself. When BTS stood on the world stage to speak their truth, for the moment not singing and dancing, they became leaders of a peaceful, a loving revolution. This was recognised by the United Nations, one of the most important global organisations for justice and well-being. Millions of people many who had not heard their music, heard their words, and knew what to do to empower them and sustain themselves wherever they lived, no matter who they were. It was a call to be revolutionary, starting with yourself. So just in summary, because that brings me right to being in the same spot on the path with them, just in seemingly different worlds, but not really. Love in action is the revolution. Any human, animal, or dimension of nature can be revolutionary when they act to address lovelessness, violence, and ecological justice. The smallest and biggest movements together towards love matter. BTS's music is created from authentic relationships and stories about their lives, about our lives. They call on us to love yourself, speak yourself. At this point, our paths meet, and social work and music fortify and reflect each other. Thank you. And just some references there. I think at this stage, if I'm just seeing if there are any questions, you're most welcome to sing out at this point, but otherwise, in about 1 minute. If we don't hear from you, we'll be saying goodbye. It's been a privilege to spend this time with you. Thank you so much. I hope you got something of value from listening to me, and I wish you well on your path, and I trust it's a path with the heart. Thank you. Bye.